All right, good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. I want you to remember, folks, this show does not run on freedom fumes alone, so if you're watching me on Rumble, I want you to smash that green $ during the show to drop a Rumble rant. It's kind of like tossing me a cold one. 7:30, 7:45 in the morning helps keep the vibes high and the mics on. So if you want to go all in, click subscribe for just $5 a month. Your support helps me fight the good fight. All right, folks, let's dive into this first with a few announcements. Remember, I mentioned yesterday that Monday and Tuesday next week will be the only days that I'm streaming. And I was debating, and I was like, all right, should I do Wednesday? Should I not? I've decided to not do Wednesday. I'm just going to stream Monday and Tuesday. I will be gone Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday, I'm taking podcast PTO. Thursday's Thanksgiving. Friday, I got to go spend all the money that I don't have so that all the stores will be in the black. Okay? So this is the plan. We will be back the following week, which will be the first week in December. And that's going to be exciting because December, what we got here? December 3rd, we are going to have, that's when we're going to start this new series. We're calling it Human Frequency. I will have a guest host starting that day, every Wednesday. We will have a guest host, Christina Lucas, friend of mine. We're going to discuss and try to bridge the politics and culture gap that we have, the gap with emotional intelligence and lived experience and relational insight. So basically, she's going to help try to steer me away from being so logical. And we're going to talk about like emotional intelligence. We're talking about people's lived experiences, not just mine. Like right now I talk about mine, but we're going to bring on somebody that has a different perspective, that's lived a life differently than me and has different perspectives. But is also very big on communication and emotional intelligence. And sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we won't agree. That's the way it works. My friend is not libertarian, so that's going to be kind of fun. So look forward to that. That's going to be our Wednesday show, Human Frequency series. So look forward. It's going to be awesome. Then the following week, on December 8th, starting every month, I'm going to be bringing on dads on the second Monday of every month for a Dad Talk Roundtable. I'm basically just going to get dads together monthly to discuss various topics from the perspective of a man, husband, or father. Now, every guy on there is going to be a dad, because you can't have a Dad Talk Roundtable if you got somebody that's, not a dad. It doesn't work that way. So they'll all be dads. They won't necessarily all be libertarians. Some of them may or may not be religious. None of those are a requirement. The only requirement is, are you a dad? And you don't even necessarily have to be married, but I think most of the circle that I know, they happen to be married as well. But we're going to be talking about things as a group from this, this is the dynamic. So we're going to have some different perspectives on various topics. Maybe we'll talk about some political thing and what that means as a man, or what that means as a father or a husband. Or maybe it'll be a cultural thing that's going, flying around on social media, whatever. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully that helps generate some interest in the Friday show, which will still continue, the Friday Dad Talk show, where I like to have on dads individually to talk about what's important to them as a dad. This is just my way of raising dad voices. So look forward to that. That's going to be exciting. Today, though, we're going to talk about smart, dumb people. No, not me. I know you guys are probably like, wow, smart, dumb people. We're going to talk about DL all day. Nope, that's not it. We're going to talk about Sam Harris. He was on the Trigonometry podcast. And man, when I was growing up, I remember Sam Harris. I believe he was one of the 4 horsemen of atheism. He's like a really smart guy. And I was a young guy, but looked up to somebody like him as intellectual and, can I as an evangelical, become intellectual to the point where I could even challenge his ideas. Turns out I just needed to live another 20 years because here I am challenging some of his ideas. Not necessarily on religion, but I probably could do that too. We're actually going to challenge some of his views on responsibility, social responsibility in a sense. So let's take a look at this first clip here. Go over to Dad TV. And I've got 4 clips from the show. Now, there was a lot in there. And this 4 clips comes from like this roughly half-hour segment. And I did my best to kind of keep all of the clips as reasonably short as possible while balancing out, okay, let's not leave out any context. So I think I've done that, but you can always go and watch the show. I've linked it in the show notes. Go check it out. You can let me know if I've gotten it all wrong. So let's go over to Dad TV here, and we're going to see what he had to say about the murder of Charlie Kirk, and then just kind of like the social dynamics around that occurred after the fact. So here we go.
Moving forward, the Charlie Kirk assassination was obviously something that left an imprint in all of our minds. It was profoundly shocking.
Terrible.
You made some very interesting comments criticizing the right's and the right's response to the Charlie Kirk assassination. So why don't we just go through it? You say what you thought, and then let's get into it.
Sure. Well, I was just starting my tour. Actually, I think I was doing my first event the day he was assassinated. So I had, like many people, there are many people in our orbit who were doing live events, and I think Ben Shapiro was in a similar situation where it's like, it's like the world stopped, and Live Nation got on the phone with everyone who they were working with and said, "Hey, listen, if you don't want to go out on stage, just let us know." But so it's just, and I said a few things about it, at those live events that I was doing that week. I mean, it was a terrible thing. It was terrible on every level. It was terrible just as a murder of a young father. It's terrible that his family was there. I mean, it's just awful. It's additionally terrible because a political assassination is genuinely dangerous because we are so combustible as a society. And the fact that we're this combustible, a lot of the onus goes to both sides, but I would put most of the onus, as will not surprise you, on the president and his cult.
Interesting. The president and his cult. They're the ones that he is blaming and saying, hey, you're responsible for Charlie Kirk's death, or you're more responsible. And he does kind of say like, oh, well, it's both sides, but I'm going to blame the people on the right. Now, let's remember, Charlie Kirk was somebody on the right. He was not, he was not like a left-leaning person, and then Trump's rhetoric is being blamed for riling up somebody on the right, and then that person went and shot him. That would kind of make sense. Hey, your rhetoric caused one of your people to go and do this very horrible act. But instead, he's saying your rhetoric caused somebody on the other team to go and kill your guy, basically. Somebody on your team. And I think there are some problems with this. But let's continue, because that was kind of like his setup, right? He just kind of was laying the groundwork. It was the initial blame on Trump, because he addresses some of like the TikTok celebrations and some of the other things. So let's hear what he has to say before we dive into the heavy criticism. Let's go back over here to Dad TV.
Moving forward.
Oh, that's not what we want.
The Charlie Kirk assassination was obviously something that left an impact.
How about this?
I would say that the response to the assassination was highly asymmetrical in ways that don't make Trump and Trumpism look good. I mean, I thought, so for instance,
So this is interesting. Highly asymmetrical in ways that don't make Trump and Trumpism. I don't even know what Trumpism is. I presume what he means by that is the fervor and the excitement and the very strong loyalty to Trump. You know, the excitement about Trump. I don't know if there's really that much excitement these days, but that excitement that you initially saw and then you saw kind of repeatedly come back. And then this loyalty that we're seeing right now, there's a lot of loyalty, and there's like this civil war, if you will, between in the right, between sides on whether or not Trump is doing what he should do, et cetera. You know, we've talked about that. So I assume that's what he means by Trumpism, but I don't really know. It's hard to tell because a lot of people, they have the so-called Trump derangement syndrome, right? Like we'll say like Trump broke their brains. And there's some truth to that. I know people personally who were easier to talk to before Trump's rise. And now I don't even want to talk politics because all they do is the conversation just steers right on back to Trump. It doesn't matter what it is. Zoom, the airplane just kind of does like a nice big 180 right on back to Trump. And it's absolutely infuriating because you're like, it doesn't matter what it is. You're like, oh man, this Jasmine Crockett person, she's just terrible. Yeah, but Trump. And it's like, dude, we're not talking about Trump right now. Everything does not lead back to Trump. And so there is this thing, Trump derangement syndrome. And I think it broke a lot of people's brains. And I think we're seeing it right now, right here with Sam Harris, where he's basically laser focused on shifting any blame, any concern to Donald Trump. And look, I am no friend to Trump, okay? I've been critical of him. I didn't vote for him in any election. I have never once cast a vote for Donald Trump, ever. And so what I'm getting at is like, I'm trying to be this objective person in the room because Sam Harris clearly isn't it. All right, let's continue. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Let's try this. Let's try it over.
I would say that in ways that don't make Trump and Trumpism look good. I mean, I thought, so for instance, all the people right of center were watching those awful videos of Gen Z maniacs celebrate Kirk's murder.
Okay, I want you to hear how he characterizes these people. These are all the TikTokers that got on TikTok and they were like, yay, Charlie Kirk's dead, et cetera, and they were just being psychopaths. They were being lunatics. They were being virtually any terrible word that you want to use, that was applicable. Okay, that's what they were doing. So I want you to hear how he characterizes them, and then I want you to hear kind of what he follows it with. So let's continue.
And obviously all those people are dangerous morons on some level, and many of them, just obviously mentally ill too. I mean, these are not, it was not the cream of the crop of the woke intelligentsia. Just the sheer number of facial piercings you saw in those videos could have told you something.
Okay, so I apologize. I forgot I cut the next video. We'll kind of get into how he talks, how he compares basically the people on the left that were arguing, or not arguing, but that were celebrating versus the people on the right, like their response. So let's dive into that response and let's just hear what he has to say, because he compares them.
What you didn't have left of center were prominent people with big platforms, prominent media figures, or to say nothing of political figures like from Obama on down, say anything but this was horrible and we should never let it come to this in American politics, right? Like this is there's no party left of center, real party for political assassination, and yet right of center, very.
Okay, so he kind of downplays it, right? He's like, yeah, these dumb kids, they're probably mentally ill. Hardy har har, they had a nose ring. That tells you everything you need to know. Right, this kind of attitude, like, yeah, no big deal. But then he's like, but people on the right, why they were different. There was something different. Let's hear what was different about him.
Very prominent people, from the president and Elon on down treated it like the first shot fired in the Civil War.
I mean, can you blame them? I want you to think about this for just a moment. Somebody shot Charlie Kirk for his political beliefs. He was no small figure. He was a major figure. This was after somebody tried to shoot the president. Well, they didn't try, but I mean, when I say they tried, like they shot at the president and they narrowly missed him. You had one assassination attempt, and then you had one actual assassination. It's Sam Harris is downplaying the response of joy over this from the left as just dumb kids who are maybe mentally ill. And I don't know if he means that in a more colloquial sense or if he means that in, you know, like a medical sense, like, hey, you're mentally ill. You literally need treatment. I don't know how he means that. But it's very clear that he's downplaying them. And then he goes on and he's like, well, there wasn't this rhetoric from the top leadership on the left. Well, no, there virtually never is. You can't go back to a time where somebody was shot and people on the other team, the leadership, the people that have power, the people that have huge audiences, you can't really find too many of them on either side where they're like, wow, that was pretty cool. Or they're like, it's all the people at the top, the people in leadership, the people with an audience, those people, they always have decorum when somebody gets shot. Hey, this is political violence. This is not acceptable. It's always the lower rung people that are speaking out. So he's comparing apples and oranges in a sense. Because he's like, well, we didn't see this on the left. Yeah, we saw some on the lower rungs. Those people, the nose ring people, those kids who are mentally ill. Yeah, we saw them, but no, don't worry about them. Except for that's who shot Charlie Kirk. He wasn't a nose ring guy, but he was a guy that had no audience. He was just as regular, everyday average as the nose ring people. Now, we didn't know that at the time, okay? Because in the timeline, this had not yet been established who had done it. But that's who ended up being. And we were all pretty certain that it was probably a pretty normal person. I mean, yeah, there was some conspiracy theories like, oh, no, did Israel come out and blah, 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 all this crazy stuff, right? But most people, if you'd ask them, I bet, I'm just kind of guessing here, but I'm betting that most people, if you ask them, they would have said, oh, the killer is probably just a seemingly normal person. You know, like most people would have assumed that because that's generally who it is. It's always somebody that's seemingly normal. So he sets aside this group of people that are cheering and parading literally within the hour of it happening. And then he goes to compare and he goes, well, the people on the left that have name recognition, well, they were saying this is unacceptable. But the people on the right with name recognition, why you just got to see what they had to say.
Totally irresponsible, totally dishonest. I mean, these people were arsonists pretending to be firefighters. I mean, Elon jumped on X within minutes before Kirk was declared dead, certainly before his killer was caught, and said the left is the party of murder, right? And then I think some hours later he said, if they won't leave us in peace, there's nothing to do but fight or die, right? I mean, to 225.
Okay, so let's pause this here really quickly because what I want to do, you can't see because I'm using Dad TV to obscure the video. That way I don't get any dings from the automated system over on YouTube there. But we do have Elon's comment here. And so I want to put it up on the screen just so we're clear about the timeline. So yes, Elon did say that. He said the left is the party of murder. And if you look here, the timestamp here. Now, if you go to the original video, their timestamp is different because I think they're in a different country. I don't know where they're out of exactly. the timestamp that I got was 3:26 p.m. Eastern time on September 10th. This was literally like about an hour after Charlie Kirk had been shot, and probably about a half an hour roughly after it started getting momentum on social media. So it happened, and then within just a few minutes, we started seeing some commentary, but then it really blew up within probably about 30 minutes of the shooting, somewhere around there. And so, depending on how you want to look at it, Elon Musk tweeted this within an hour of him shooting, or a half an hour of it started, of the event really gaining momentum and people finding out about it. Okay? So, it is true. He did say that. The left is the party of murder. And again, I go back to Donald Trump had an assassination attempt. A bullet went by his head. But we're not talking about somebody showed up and they had a gun and they were talking trash and they didn't even get close. We're talking about somebody literally aimed a rifle at the president, shot and missed, luckily. Then we have Charlie Kirk, a major figure, get shot while he's speaking to a crowd of I don't know how many thousands of people. What do you expect, Sam? Do you expect people to say, the left isn't really all that violent? When you've got Antifa out there talking about violence and revolution, when we've seen these kind of videos of people saying, we're going to come for your children, we're going to do this. What do you expect? How do you expect people to respond? I think he's downplaying it because he wants to focus on Donald Trump as the bad guy. And I think he is actually contributing to the problem that we have. And we do have a problem. Now, I will say this. Is it fair for Elon Musk to get out there and say the left is the party of murder? Perhaps not. It's a bit strong language. But you know me. I look and I say, well, I'm a free speech absolutist. He can say what he wants. And the answer to bad ideas is better ideas. Let's go back to Dad TV here, and we will continue listening to what he had to say in this section here. So, there.
5 million people, right? So to have the richest guy in the world on the most politically important social media platform in the world say this sort of thing is just, it's beyond reckless. I mean, it's just sociopathic. It's just, he is just flinging matches into a landscape that has been just soaked in gasoline.
Okay. I somewhat agree with him. I think if you're somebody if you're somebody like Elon Musk and you have a huge audience, I think that there is this, I don't want to call it a responsibility. I don't want to say that, I don't believe that he owes anybody anything. But I think there's this, it's like with great power comes great responsibility kind of a thing. It's like not something that can be enforced, but we can look and say, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that. You have a big audience and maybe you should have, done what you could in the moment to try to de-escalate. Because, there was a lot of concern at one point, like what's going to happen? Because we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if there's going to be another attempt. We didn't know anything. Right? So people are screaming. So I think in that particular sense, it's fair to say, yeah, you probably shouldn't have tweeted it out. But I think Sam Harris takes it a little too far when he's like, this is reckless. This is, he's like using all this very strong language, sociopathic. You're like, dude, remember, this is the second person that's been shot at, and this person actually was killed. The right has a reason to say, whoa, what the hell's going on? It's not like he just said it for no. It's not like somebody showed up with a gun and security got him, and no big deal, no harm, no foul. In real life, and how things played out. It's not like we're saying that. Somebody died. We watched it. We saw it. The video got uploaded. Many of us saw it. We didn't want to see it. And it was brutal. and his friends saw it. I think his family saw it. I've not really gotten the truth on whether or not Charlie Kirk's family was there, but presumably they were there and they saw it. If not, like, nonetheless, they heard about it because that was the topic of conversation. So I guess the real question is, how are we supposed to respond, Sam? Are we supposed to just get on social media and be like, man, I hope there's not another one? Or just, hey, everybody, pray for peace. I mean, look, let's think about it. People on the left, when there's a tragedy, they get pissed when people come out and say, well, thoughts and prayers. They're like, thoughts and prayers aren't enough. Okay. So they escalate it. They say, hey, thoughts and prayers aren't enough here. You guys are murderous. Now, is that exaggerating? A little bit. There are plenty of people on the left who do not want people to be murdered. They were not celebrating. And we're not talking about just leadership. We're talking about regular, everyday, average folks. I know plenty of people on the left who are like, no, this is wrong. Right? They had their comments. They had their political commentary. But their moral compass said this was immoral. So there's plenty of people like that. But, how do people respond? What is that? What does it look like? It's easy to sit back and throw stones. But what does it actually look like? Let's continue listening.
And the soaking has been done mostly by Trump and Trumpism and just the grifters right of center, like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones. I mean, and I know you have your differences with those guys, and perhaps we'll get into it.
Okay, so he goes on and he's like, oh, we've got this gas-soaked landscape, and it's been done by all of these people. And if you notice something, he only went back a few years. Like Candace Owens and, whoever else he named. He only went back a few years. Well, as it turned out, back in 2020, in February of 2020, I actually had an episode called Jeers to Tears. And I was talking about some of the rhetoric that comes from the left. So since people on the left cannot seem to recall some of their own rhetoric that has likely led to the situation that we're in now, let me remind them. So here I'm reading from my notes from the episode 7. We're on episode 622. Episode 7, Jeers to Tears. I wasn't even doing video back then. This was only audio. And not like my shows were fully scripted. They were way different. Okay? But I want you to, here are some of the headlines that I pulled up from years prior talking about the rhetoric. Okay? And I have some quotes in here too. I got a combination of quotes and headlines. So here's a quote from December 6th, 2019. This was Joe Biden speaking to a voter in a town hall. He said, quote, "You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. If you want to take my shape, let's do push-ups together. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take an IQ test." Now, that's not quite the same as celebrating somebody's death. That doesn't necessarily, I'm not saying that these are the kind of things that led somebody to shoot somebody, but I'm just telling you, the left seems to want to forget that they played a role in us getting to the point where we are today. Okay? You have somebody who's actively running for president of the United States, challenging citizens to an IQ test. I mean, if I challenge you to an IQ test, what am I telling you? What is the underlying concept of there that I'm telling you? I'm telling you, you are stupid. Imagine that. Imagine you're a voter, you're challenging, a potential candidate, a candidate for the president of the United States. And maybe you're wrong, maybe you're right. That's not relevant. From my perspective, if you run for office, you're going to get challenged on all kinds of things, and it won't be fair. Too bad, so sad. That's what you signed up for. So we have Joe Biden. He's going around the country. Citizens are asking him things. Some of the things they'll ask him make sense. Some of them don't. Whatever. It's not, he has to learn how to deal with it. And he gets pissy, and he challenges a guy to an IQ test, basically saying, "You're too dumb." Yeah, I'm sure that really leads to a good place, doesn't it, Sam? Here's a headline from The Root, July 23rd, 2018. How the Republican Party became the party of racism. April 24th, 2018. Research finds that racism, sexism, and status fears drove Trump voters. From 538, January of 2017, how unconscious sexism could help explain Trump's win. Vox, 2016, hostility toward women is one of the strongest predictors of Trump's support. Who can forget this memorable quote? You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. They're racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. Hillary Clinton, September 9th, 2016. Here's another headline. 2014. We're going back. Salon.com. Conservatives, evil and psychopathy. Science makes the link. Oh, science linked conservatives with evil and psychopathy. Spiked online, August 2013. You're right wing? You must be stupid. Live Science 2012. Low IQ and conservative beliefs linked to prejudice. Politico 2011. Racist code underlies Trump's rise. March of 2010. Psychology Today. Why liberals are more intelligent than conservatives. Psychology Today 2009. Conservatives lack sense of humor, study finds. Here's another quote from Barack Obama, April 12, 2008. People have been beaten down so long they feel so betrayed by government. So it's not surprising then that they get bitter and they cling to guns or religion or antipathy towards people who aren't like them as a way to explain their frustrations. And then let's see, Slate.com, 2007, liberal interpretation, rigging a study to make conservatives look stupid. Am I making sense here, folks? Are you getting the point? What I'm telling you is Sam Harris acts like political rhetoric that leads to violence somehow started with Trump. Yet I can go back to at least 2007 and I can find articles that are labeling conservatives, people on the right, as low IQ, as stupid, prejudiced, racist, sexist, xenophobic, homophobic. If you're that many phobics, doesn't that make you kind of a dangerous person to everyone else? Isn't that what the left has been saying all this time? You are a physical danger to these minorities. Oh, but it was actually Trump's rhetoric. Oh. Well, who shot Charlie Kirk? Was it a right-winger? No, it was not. It was somebody who presumably was on the left. Maybe not entrenched in the left in the way we normally think of it. They maybe they weren't like, yeah, rah, 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 Democrats, I'm going to, vote blue no matter who. And maybe they weren't out there with political opinions. Maybe they weren't necessarily listening to all the left-wing political talk shows and, BreadTube and all that other stuff. Maybe that's not who they were exactly. But they were certainly on the left on some way. I mean, it's arguable to what degree. There's a lot of information that we can be skeptical of. But as far as we know, they were definitely not a right-wing person. So how much of the discourse going back years made this person believe that somebody like Donald Trump was perhaps wanting to put them into a camp? Right? And it's only gotten worse since Trump's rise. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Trump is an authoritarian. In fact, they addressed that in this next clip. Here's the last clip. Let's play this last clip here. And he addresses this whole authoritarian, fascist, whatever conversation. I want you to hear how this plays out, because the guys over at Trigonometry, they kind of push back on Sam, and they're like, well, don't you think this plays a role? I want you to hear how he responds to this. So let's go here. Let's go over to Dad TV, and then boom.
Let's just pause that there. Isn't there an argument to be made, Sam, that the rhetoric of the left, calling everyone fascists and Nazis, when quite patently they're neither fascist? Look, you can have your criticisms about Charlie Kirk's politics, But let's be honest, he was a right-wing conservative, a Christian conservative. He's not a fascist, he's not a Nazi. Yet that accusation had been made time and time again, not only against Kirk, but also people of that particular branch of politics.
Oh, he's making a good point. The one that I made in 2020. And I said, hey, the left, they have a problem with how they're talking about people on the right. And I've got personal friends who are like, dude, you're just looking for something to be angry about. And I'm like, I don't really have to look far, man. I mean, all I got to do is look at the friggin' headlines. You guys are, not you guys, not him, but, people on the left, people who identify on the left, they're the ones writing this, not me. And those Salon, Politico, Psychology Today, these are not some schmuck's blog that I drug up that gets like 10 views. These are named organizations that get attention, or at least once did. Some of them still do. I don't know if anybody's going to Salon these days, but once upon a time, Salon did get a lot of attention. And so they were putting out articles just like that, basically telling people that if you're a minority, the people on the right are not only against you, but they're a danger to you. What do you do, or what do you suppose people think they should do if they truly believe that an entire group of people are a danger to them? What do you do? What do you think about doing? You arm up. You think, maybe I better take action. And yet, the best that Sam Harris, smart guy, dumb, smart, dumb guy, the best he can do is to keep swinging it back and going, yeah, but Trump. Yeah, but Trump. Takes no responsibility for this. Let's hear what he says. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this clip will show me something that maybe let's see.
Doesn't that incentivize these type of murders, this type of violence?
Well, it's more complicated than that.
Because it's more complicated than that. When it's Trump, it's not complicated at all. But when it's his team, well, okay, hold on. There's some complications. Let's unpack this a little bit. There's a lot going on here. We don't want to cast any stones too early. Really, Sam? Either he's dumb, which I can, or he's being dishonest, or perhaps a little bit of both. Luckily, you have Dad here.
So Trump is not Hitler. I've never said he was. We're not living in Weimar Germany now.
Okay. So this is interesting. We're going to pick this apart a little bit. He said, I've never said he was. Nobody cares about what you said, Sam. What about what everybody else has said? Right? He's already dismissed all the TikTokers who may have massive audiences, by the way. And I will point out, they do not have an audience as massive as Elon Musk. But part of his argument against Elon Musk was, hey, this guy has a massive audience and look what he's tweeting. He's tweeting that, the left wall wants us dead. And then when you see that the left, many of them on the left are like, we want you dead. He's like, yeah, no big deal. But Trump, really? It's weird that I ever thought this guy was so brilliant.
In America, but he is a genuine wannabe authoritarian, doing many authoritarian things and damaging our democracy with both hands.
Okay. I actually agree with him on that. I do believe that Trump is not a fascist. Could he become one? We could argue that. Is he an authoritarian? Oh, absolutely. He is very much an authoritarian. And he does authoritarian things. And I do believe that he is damaging our system of governance. Though I'm not going to cast the blame entirely on him. We do have a whole ass Congress. They're sitting on their hands most of the time, or just doing his bidding for whatever reason, right? Maybe they believe in him. Maybe they're afraid that they'll lose their seat in Congress, whatever, right? We have that going on. We also have a judicial system which does kind of push back, and they say, well, you can't do that. And then we have, citizens that come out and they're like, oh, the liberal justices, right? So we have a major problem in our society. people really don't respect our system of governance. So if you're just going to blame it on one man, well then, like, is he king already? People were talking about no kings. It sounds like you people have made him a king already because you're not willing to take and say, where else does this blame belong? I have been beating my chest to say blame belongs in Congress. Blame belongs on the people. Blame belongs on the left for the things that they say and that they, that they make light of. Blame belongs on the right. I've been saying this, and apparently I'm just talking to myself because you got Sam Harris who says it's all about Trump, and that's what a lot of people are eating up.
Every chance he gets, right? So I don't know, and we're just you're now asking me what I think about the prospect of him running for a third term in just overt defiance of the 22nd Amendment, right? It's not fascism. I mean, fascism is just the wrong term, right? I mean, it's just got too much, culturally specific and historically specific baggage.
Okay, he does nail it there. I will give him full credit. When people use the word fascist, when they use the word Nazi, those terms come with a lot of baggage, and this is why I think that they get diluted, and that's why people use them. They want that baggage. They're saying that strong word because it means something. And the hope is that by using this very negative term, that whoever they're using it against will kowtow to them. What ends up actually happening is people, first they're kind of in fear. Then they get tired of hearing it. So then they start laughing about it. Then they start embracing it. Why do you think Nick Fuentes is so popular right now? He's popular because all of these terms that have been used repeatedly for literally like decades, people have come to a breaking point. They're like, I'm tired of being called these names. And you know what? Somebody rose up and said, you know what? We'll embrace it. And he has, I think I saw a clip of Nick Fuentes and he said something like Fascist Friday or something like that. He just embraced it. But I think he's basically the political version of Howard Stern. He's a shock jock. To what degree he believes half of his stuff, I'm not really certain. I do think he believes some of it at its core, but I think when you start looking at the exaggeration, the rhetoric that he uses, I think he's just using that as kind of like a shock jock punchline to get attention, and people are eating it up. Why are they eating it up? Is it because they're actually fascist and Nazis? No. It's because they're tired of all the nonsense that's been happening for decades. They're tired of people like Sam Harris downplaying it, making it out like it's no big deal. They're tired of people like Sam Harris coming out and saying, okay, well, when my side does it, it's no big deal because look at these particular people that aren't doing this thing. Don't worry about the people that are. And on your side, anybody that's doing it is a bad person. Because there's not consistent. He is intellectually inconsistent, or he's dishonest. I'm not really sure which one, but I will give him the credit there, for saying, "Hey, these are imprecise terms. They have baggage. They do. We should stop using them." And Sam Harris, we should recognize Sam Harris as being one of the leading figures, telling people on the left, "Knock it off. Stop using that language. You are contributing to the problem." But he can't because he's too busy blaming Trump. He's too busy acting like history started with Trump when it actually predated Trump by a long shot.
Attached to it. But authoritarian is the right term, and aspiring tyrant is the right term. And he's just not, the truth is, he's not effective enough. He's not ideological enough. He doesn't care about enough big things to worry me that much, right? I mean, if he were this is a point I've made to the consternation and confusion of many audiences, but the irony is, if he were a better person, he'd be a more dangerous person, right? If he were...
Okay. I'm not even sure what to make of this. On one hand, Sam can't help himself, and he does it throughout the podcast. He can't help himself but swing back to Trump. Trump this, Trump that. Trump's a bad guy. Look at Trump saying this. He's not a fascist, but he's totally an authoritarian. And some of the stuff I agree with, some of the stuff I disagree with. But he keeps coming back to Trump. But then he turns around and he's like, All right, look, he's not really all that effective. So which is it, Sam? Is the guy, devilishly, out there destroying our democracy single-handedly? Or is he not that effective? Which one? You got to pick a lane, buddy. You cannot have both of them. That does not work. Pick a lane.
A smarter person, a more committed person. I mean, if he could possibly commit to something beyond himself, right? And make, he'd be more dangerous, right? If he were less distractible, et cetera. So I don't view him as a Hitler figure, but I do. Everyone who's calling him an authoritarian, which sounds a lot like fascist, and you turn up the dial on authoritarianism. There's no important difference between what you're talking about and fascism. Then you're just talking about like the clothing and whether the Catholic Church was ever in the mix, and et cetera. So he's not as bad as Putin.
But
he's not as bad. Look, let me tell you something, Sam. I don't know if you know this or not, but virtually nobody in America really knows how bad Putin is. Yeah, we can hear stories, we can read the news, but as we were once told, and everybody loves to remind us, we haven't been there, okay? So we've not experienced it. We don't know how bad Putin is. So making that comparison, that just conjures up whatever we think of Putin, whether we think of him in the proper sense of the authoritarian, that he is, or if we exaggerate it, or if we downplay it. So you're not really telling us anything there, buddy. Just want to point that out. Do you see my problem? You see why I think he's not really being, a proper intellectual in this? Because I think he has an agenda. He wants to beat up on Trump and talk bad about Trump, but he also wants to couch his words just enough so that he can go, well, I wasn't going that far. You still got to listen to me. It's kind of like if you're talking to somebody and you see that the rhetoric is kind of infuriating them, and then you dial it back a little bit, but you're really saying the same thing. You're just maybe using different words. That's kind of what he's doing, right? He's kind of dialing it back a little bit, just enough so that he can still do what everybody else is doing, but not be as bad as they are. And I think this is the problem. He's not getting to the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that this has been the point that we're at today is decades old. And I'm not blaming it entirely on the left. Like, we could go back and we could see when, say, the religious right was a bit of authoritarian in our country back in, the 80s and the 90s, when you had the moral majority. So we could go back and we could keep ping-ponging. I think at a certain point, it no longer matters who started it. But I think it's worth acknowledging that, hey, both sides are engaging in this and making it worse. So what I've continually said, each side needs to call out their own side. It's easy to call out the other side. It's much harder to call out your own side. Sam seems incapable of doing that. He seems only capable of calling out the right, Trump, Elon, so on and so forth.
Do you not think that it's really important when you criticize your political enemies?
It's important to be honest.
But it's also important to be accurate. In the same way that you can think somebody's a terrible person and their politics are awful, it doesn't make them a pedophile, for instance.
Yeah.
And this kind of escalatory language, I personally think, is highly dangerous. And when you live in a country like America where you have access to guns and there's so many people with mental illnesses, that's dangerous.
But nobody uses more inflammatory language less responsibly than Trump and his enablers, right?
Nobody in this certain time frame. And the reality is, nobody really has as big of a platform. We did see the TikTokers. We saw them, okay? They were using pretty inflammatory language. We've seen the videos during you might call it the transgender craze, of all the transgender influencers. They would come out. There's that one creepy guy. I'm trying to think of his name. Is it Jeremy? I can't remember his name exactly. But it's that one creepy guy, and he's trans, and he's like, yes, we are coming for your children. Like, he's just really, really creepy. Right? Yeah. So, yes, people do use inflammatory language. And it's happening. And he's downplaying all the regular, everyday, average folk when it's on his side. When it's not on his side, He's not downplaying it. He's not only holding the Elon Musk accountable and or the Donald Trumps necessarily. He is basically saying, well, the right has this problem. Here's the issue that I have with all of this. Think of the term stochastic terrorism. It's basically when a public figure or media outlet uses mass media to incite random acts of ideological motivated violence that are statistically predictable but individually unpredictable. Okay, so it's not necessarily intentional, but it's basically criticism of the rhetoric that says this kind of rhetoric, it leads people to do a thing, usually a negative thing. That's the intention behind it. And the problem is we never know when it's going to pop off because we don't know when this person will finally break from hearing all this rhetoric. The problem is the Sam Harrises of the world like to just point and act as if it's only coming from the right because he's only talking about Donald Trump. But I just read to you headline after headline after headline where we're talking bad about conservatives and people on the right. And we're not just saying, it would be one thing if we just said, hey, maybe conservatives aren't as intelligent as liberals. Maybe liberals go to college and get their liberal arts degree, and that makes them more intelligent than conservatives who only get their business degree, right, or an engineering degree. And you could probably make that argument. I'm not saying you can make the argument in the sense that it's correct, but you could make that argument without it actually contributing to this stochastic terrorism, right? Conservatives will go, yeah, whatever. Nobody's, and even people on the left, they'll go, oh, whatever. Conservatives are dumb. So you could make an argument like that and then not have to worry about adding to potential violence in the future. But when you get into things like, hey, these guys are racist, they're homophobic, they're xenophobic, they're all these terrible things, they're psychopathic, they're evil, that's something entirely different. And then when you combine it with, hey, these people are dumb, now you're basically painting a picture and you're saying, you have this group of people who it's basically inherent to them. There's nothing they can do about it. They're evil, they're psychopathic, they hate Muslims, they're Islamophobic, they're xenophobic, they hate, if you're a minority, they hate you. There's nothing you can do about it. Because they're low IQ, they're too dumb to do anything about it. They're psychopathic. They're all these things. There's nothing good about them. Which is funny because guess what? We're having that conversation right now with people on the right on social media. How many times have I seen, I've logged onto Twitter and I'll see, some crowd of, black kids doing something and people are like, how do we fix this culture? And all the conversation about Haitians having low IQ, black people have low IQ. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. We have a problem. We have a couple problems. The first problem is that everybody wants to point the finger at the other team. And the second problem is we want to downplay when our team is doing something that we're heavily critical of the other team. It's just twofold. Not only are we pointing at them, we're saying, well, our side, no, it's different. It's different. What did he say? It's complicated. No, that's not what he said. He said it's, he said it's complicated. It's more complicated than that. Really? It's not more complicated than that. We are dehumanizing the other team. We are also contributing to this attitude that you are in danger from team other. Now, are there people on the other team that might be a danger to us? Yes. That's not the same thing as painting with a broad brush and saying that whole other team is literally an inherent threat to you. But that's what we're doing. Both the left and the right are doing it. The left won't acknowledge that they're doing it, and when it comes up, the right probably won't either. They'll make some excuse, just like the left has. So it's up to people like me to say, both of you are being terrible. Both of you are contributing to this problem. Now, I want to throw something else at you just real quickly before we close the show. If you go and you do some research on trauma, there's this idea of like secondary victimization via social expectations. Now, what does all that mean? That sounds like a mouthful. That basically occurs when you have a victim and their suffering is compounded by the negative or unsupportive social reactions to their victimization. Okay, so that's still not getting down to something simple. So let's try to simplify this even more. This is basically you have social expectations, including stereotypes of how the victim should respond. And if the victim does not respond in that way, then it leads to them feeling judged or maybe not believed or maybe even unsafe. And so then individuals, they kind of have to follow this prescribed path. It's kind of like choosing restorative justice over a traditional court one, right? And so let me tell you where I got this idea. I got it from my mama many years ago. Now, my mama was not college educated. She just liked to read a lot. And she said something to me a long time ago. It's very controversial. I generally don't talk about it because, man, it will make some people angry. But that's what I do now. I have a platform. I make people angry sometimes. So that's what I'm going to do. She made a point years ago. She said, and I think she used to love watching Oprah. And so she would watch all the Oprah shows. This is back when, she would have on, victims and families and all these other things. And she made this really interesting point. She said, when a woman is sexually assaulted, there is this expectation of how they should respond, that they should be unable, that they will respond in this way in the aftermath. They will have trouble making relationships with men. They will have trouble with this, trouble with that. And she pointed out and she said, that's not always the case. Some women actually have more resilience. And we're not diminishing victims here. We're just saying people are individuals. They respond to different things differently. Some people, if there's an accident and somebody's, has a serious injury, some people will do very well in responding to that. Some people will crumble straight up, right? Just like if there's a dangerous situation, some people will throw themselves in the middle of that dangerous situation. Other people will back away. Okay, so we're not judging. This is not a judgmental moment here. But she basically was making this point that basically not all women will necessarily respond in the same way to sexual assault. And that some women could be more resilient and actually find their way back to normalcy or as close to it as possible quicker if it were not for the social expectation of this is how a victim behaves necessarily. And so I always thought that was kind of interesting, and I just never really, because I was like, when do you have a chance to talk about this? Like, there's no really good time to make that conversation. I don't even know how, it was so long ago, I don't remember the context under which my mom even brought it up. But she was making that point. And it was probably after we watched some Oprah show, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I brought it up. So let me tie that in with this. If we keep telling minorities that this is what people are and that their actions will inevitably lead to this, or we lead, like, remember the trans craze where they were saying, hey, you're trying to eradicate us? Okay. If you're part of a group and you've been told that group other is their behaviors are going to eradicate you, now you've got this existential threat. That needs to be dealt with. You can't live life like that. But then if you are further told, hey, this is what happens to people that are of your group. You feel this way, you feel judged, you feel disbelieved, you feel whatever, right? You have all these feelings. Well, we have this, what did I call it? What was that phrase? We have this secondary victimization via social expectations. You have this social expectation of how you, as a minority, are expected to respond to these negative aspects. So now I think we're funneling people in two ways. We're funneling them into how they're supposed to believe they are victimized and how they are supposed to respond to that victimization. On top of that, more importantly, the first part of that is that we're telling them you are a victim. Now, it's not to say that nobody's a victim ever. I've talked about legislation on this podcast before that I think they're bad, that I think they will lead to bad outcomes. So it's not the case that I'm saying they're entirely incorrect. What I'm saying is there is a balance in the middle that we keep moving away from. We're moving away from this balance where we say, your team did this, it's bad. My team did this, they're also bad. We're moving away from that, right? Or we're not even there. We're also saying, hey, if that team, who is not our team, if they do this, this is what it means for you. So now we put this expectation upon the victims. This is how you're supposed to victim. This is what we expect. So now they'll do that. Do you see the point that I'm making here? We're doing a disservice to our own selves. We're not allowing ourselves to be resilient, and we're not being honest in the conversations that we're having with people. We are literally boxing ourselves in, creating our own powder keg. We're saying these people are against you. Okay, maybe they are, maybe they're not. Then we're saying this is what they're trying to do to you. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Then we're saying, oh yeah, on top of that, you're a victim. This is how victims respond. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. We box people into this tiny, tiny little box, and then we're surprised when one of them eventually, literally, blows up. We're doing this to ourselves. We're not having honest conversations. And the Sam Harrises of the world, who are supposed to be the intellectuals, they're the ones that are supposed to be, well-read and understand all these concepts and reach out and grab them and bring them all together and say, let's make sense of the world. Let's give us some good direction. We call that wisdom, by the way. That's why he could be a smart, dumb guy, because he's not wise. He's not doing what he is supposed to do, which is say, whoa, hold up here. Team left, for which I'm a part of, you are contributing to this problem. You need to knock it off. And here are the ways in which you are contributing to stochastic terrorism. Yeah, it's nice that you want to say that about the right, and we can have a conversation about what they're doing and where they're wrong. But right now, you need to worry about you. And I'm on your team, and this is important because I need my team to act responsible. Then, and only then, after he does that, then he can say, all right, team right, let's have a frank conversation. You're right. It's not fair that people are calling you a Nazi. It's not fair that people are calling you a fascist. Authoritarian? Well, that one is kind of fair. Here's why. That is the conversation we need to have from the Sam Harrises of the world. That's the conversation we're not getting. And so you know what we're going to get? More of what we've been getting. Because in 2020, I said this was a problem. That I didn't necessarily predict that we were going to, see shootings and stuff like that. I didn't make any predictions on what it was going to lead to. But I did point out, I said, this is a problem. People, and some of my friends, some people, they laughed at me. They're like, whatever, dude. Okay, here we are. I've been unfortunately proven correct. So maybe we start telling the Sam Harrises of the world, if you're not going to be a proper intellectual, be gone. We don't need you. We can just tune into Liberty Dad. He'll do it for you. He's maybe not as well read and maybe not as intelligent, but he's at least going down the right path. That's the path we need. We need the path that speaks to all sides and says, you're wrong, this is the problem with what you're saying, this is the problem with what you're doing, so on and so forth. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to be honest with yourself. That's what we need. We need a proper mediator. And we should expect that our intellectuals do that. And if they're not going to do that, be gone. All right. Let's get into some comments here. Let's see what you guys are saying. Oh. Oops. Nice thumbnail. I know, right? I like it. It was a good thumbnail. Appreciate it. I did my best. I'm trying to branch out and do some new things here. Let me move that a little bit here. Let's see here. I'm gonna move this over a wee bit. Just give me a second. I was making some changes the other day, and I guess I made them really okay. Whatever. All right, we'll just leave it that way. All right, I'm not gonna leave it that way. All right. Anyway, let's see what else we got. Yes, go back. I know somebody's gonna be like, "Hey, dude, I can't see all the text on the screen." I know. I was making a massive number of changes the other day, and I inadvertently messed up my comments that show up on the screen. So I've got to go and resolve that. And I'm not really sure how to best do that. There, that works. Okay, so yes, go back and watch old Liberty Dad episodes on YouTube. Do me a favor, folks. Go back, check out some of the episodes. You might have to go to libertydad.com if you want to listen to like the Jeers for Cheers, some of the really, really old stuff. That's going to be way back. I don't know that you necessarily need to, and it's not going to go toward YouTube, but, I'm always, it does help in the podcast realm. So you can go back, and if you want to hear what I said back then in 2020 on Jeers to Cheers, basically I made the same commentary that I did now, that we have this problem, but I was kind of focusing more on the left at the time. And I was talking about an event that happened. You can go check it out or not, whatever. You got everything you needed to know. Let's see what else we got here. Keith says, many people seem to believe that there are two parties, that they are balanced and therefore a good system. It's true. We don't have it. We have a uniparty. And I don't mean that just from this begrudging libertarian sense, like, oh man, we don't get included enough. No, like literally the left and the right, Republicans and Democrats, they act so similar that sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the two. Like I'm willing to bet, maybe I'll dig up some stuff for a show. Maybe I'll dig up some stuff where I can go, was this said by a Republican or a Democrat? Maybe we'll do that. Let's see what else. Yes, do DL a solid and buy him a coffee. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/Liberty Dad. Check that out. Hook me up. All your support goes toward improving the show. Let's see here. Larry Sharp, since everyone is called an ist or a phobe, it doesn't hit like it used to. The words mean nothing anymore. In a sense, they don't, but they still do. So they work for the minorities that are being told this person's a racist or a sexist, right? They work for many of those people who have that feeling of, hey, these people are against me. They don't work necessarily for the people that they're being used on. So if you call me a racist, I'm just going to roll my eyes and laugh at you. It's not powerful anymore. So if I am actually being a racist and I'm able to laugh it off now because that's what people who are accused do, then I'm not willing to reconsider some of my behaviors or actions, my actions or my words. But the people that the people that are in the minority groups, they're still feeling it. That's a problem. Because now you have people who aren't necessarily addressing maybe real actual behaviors. So they'll continue on doing what they're doing. You got people that are told, hey, this person's a bad person, and perhaps they're doing some bad things. So we have an imbalance. The words were supposed to be a balance. Hey, this person's a threat to you. Hey, you're being a threat. But we're only getting one side of that now. Let's see, what else? Liberty Dad, the mediator. To some degree. I have my own punchiness. All right, folks. That's my show for today. Hope you found this informative and inspiring. And whether you're watching me live or you're watching me later, I want you to come back and drop a comment after the show. Let me know your thoughts. Did I miss anything? Do I need to offer a correction? Maybe you just want to be promiscuous with praise. Whatever the case, I'll take it. But with that, I'll be out for today. Have a good one, folks. You know that I'm all about supporting organizations that hold my values. Make sure you head on over to blackgunsmatter.shop. They've got apparel, stickers, and more. Use the code LibertyDad, all one word, at checkout to score a 10% discount. Or just hit the referral link in the show notes. That'll make it so much easier. Remember, I'm not just a voice on a mic. I'm a dad who's working hard to deliver to you the best libertarian content. Connect with me on Linktree, where you'll find links to my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, because, every bit helps keep this show rolling. Plus, you can find me on my other platforms to stay in the loop. With your help, this show, The Message of Liberty, will be seen and heard by more people. As always, I appreciate you tuning in and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.